campaign for Senator Mitch McConnell came under fire on Saturday for tweeting out a photo that some people found disturbing in the wake of the 2 domestic terror incidents that happened over the weekend. So now I want to read you the tweet, and I'm going to show you the image here. Team Mitch says, "The Grim Reaper of socialism at Fancy Farm today." And so now here's the image that was corresponding with that. And it's, oh, look, it's a graveyard. Rip Socialism and Amy McGrath, right? You can see over in the right-hand corner. Oh, well, that's lovely, right? So now Amy McGrath, of course, this is an opponent in his 2020 Senate re-election race, right? So now she was not pleased after she saw that, as nobody would be. And here's the reason. She said, "Hours after the El Paso shooting, Mitch McConnell proudly tweeted this photo. I find it so troubling that our politics have become so nasty and personal that the Senate Majority Leader thinks it's appropriate to use imagery of the death of a political opponent, me, as messaging." She also added that it's symptomatic of what's wrong with our system. "I'm fine with the ordinary rough and tumble of politics, but this strikes me as beyond the pale." And look, she's absolutely right. I mean, yes, even when you symbolically say the death of the person, not the campaign, right? So if that tombstone read Amy McGrath's campaign, okay, perfect. We wouldn't have because at least that would add some needed context, right? But no, that's a gravestone literally says her name on it. That's ridiculous. Why would you do that? Well, unfortunately, Republican messaging, and I've talked about this for years, right? I've given you examples. Basically, what they have is they've gotten to the point in their messaging where they have to simulate violence against their political opponents. And not even just against their opponents, but against pieces of legislation. How many times have you seen a Republican run an ad about shooting a gun at Obamacare, for example? And we know what that's a stand-in for. Oh no, we're shooting government tyranny. What are you talking about? Oh, it just happens to be the actual legislation, the bill of Obamacare that we're going to shoot. You don't think that's representative of something else? It could be, or it might not be. Maybe I'm reading into it too much. But either way, how many times do Republicans, use guns in their messaging, and not just the actual shooting of guns, but also putting like bullseyes on their political opponents' heads? There's Republican politicians that got in trouble for doing that as well. So it's just those constant references to violence or violent acts that are a bit of a problem. But of course, here comes Kevin Golden, campaign manager for Mitch McConnell. He said McGrath was being disingenuous in her response to the photo, which he said was based on a political cartoon printed in the Louisville Courier-Journal. Now, that political cartoon, and I'm going to show you that, that political cartoon, and it's going to have Amy McGrath's response to it, as well as Mitch McConnell. So I'm going to show it probably a couple of times, so you guys get the full context as I explain it. But here it is. There's the comic. Obviously, it's got Mitch McConnell, and it's meant to be against Mitch McConnell, showing all the things that he is killed over his years, right? Now, I don't necessarily like it, but there it is. You have healthcare, you have all these different things, campaign finance reform, Allison Lundergan Grimes over there. So now, of course, Golden said, and this is again the cartoon here, right? You can see Mitch McConnell says, "Although I profoundly disagree with a few of these gravestones, this might be my all-time favorite cartoon of the over 600 in my career." And then McGrath, you can see, says, "In case you missed it, before Mitch McConnell gave sick coal miners only 2 minutes of his time, he thought it was funny to tweet about them dying." So what Golden said, though, is, oh, she's being disingenuous because she used the cartoon too. She used it to point out Mitch McConnell's hypocrisy and to go after Mitch McConnell and say, look, he only gave so much of his time to the coal miners he promised to defend. And so that's a misleading statement from Goldman. He said that McGrath had shown support for the Courier-Journal's cartoon, but again, that was disingenuous, right? She retweeted it to criticize his reaction to it. But onto the larger issue, right? This just goes to Republicans being proud of killing things. I mean, for example, some of those gravestones had health care and campaign finance reform. Imagine being proud of killing those. Those are incredibly popular. Campaign finance reform is something that Republicans and Democrats both agree on because they think that the system is too corrupt. But Mitch McConnell bathes in corruption. He loves taking money from whoever. I mean, he just got a recent nickname, and although I kind of disagree with it, Moscow Mitch. But it's because he took money from a Russian company that built, I don't know if it was factories in Kentucky, but there is a deal that benefits Mitch McConnell. And that's, of course, after he blocked election security measures. That's another reason he's got the Moscow Mitch. I think that it's, and the reason that I have the criticism of that nickname, by the way, is that it plays a little bit of on the McCarthyism. And generally that Moscow thing is aimed towards people who are more leftist, right? And they're making the comparisons with the USSR, et cetera. So it seems like a little bit of red baiting. But then again, at the same time, Mitch McConnell hates that. Well, then, I guess I'm not bothered too much if it bothers Mitch McConnell. But that's just me personally. But here's another nickname that he had received that's far more apt. And he gave himself this nickname, by the way, the Grim Reaper. Well, because that's what he is. And now imagine being proud of that. Again, he denied Merrick Garland a hearing, right, when he deserved a hearing. He also killed that legislation for coal miners to help them. Campaign finance reform, like I said before. Basically, any bill any Democrat passes immediately gets killed in the House. And he's proud of that. He is proud of being incredibly obstructionist, to stand in the way of anything, even things that are necessary. And he has to be shamed into actually voting in favor or at least bringing some of this legislation to the floor. McConnell is a pretty terrible dude. And the sooner we vote him out, the better. Now, I'm not a fan of Amy McGrath. I'm pretty worried about that, actually, because Amy McGrath is part of the establishment. And so she was chosen by Chuck Schumer, right? Now, the establishment has a pretty terrible track record taking on Mitch McConnell, which is amazing because Mitch McConnell is deeply unpopular in Kentucky. He has a 19% approval rating. But they put up people like Allison Lundergan Grimes. They put up people like Amy McGrath, who are milquetoast establishment, not progressive. Oh, but a progressive will never play in Kentucky. Oh, yeah? Well, there was actually somebody that was going to run back in 2014, and they decided not to run her. She was a progressive, and I think she would have actually beaten Mitch McConnell. But again, the establishment chose Allison Lundergan Grimes. She went off to the right. She ran as basically Republican light, and she got slaughtered. So, look, that's the problem, right? If the Democrats are serious about this, they will vote and support a progressive. And so, again, if they don't do that, then say hello to more years of the Grim Reaper, because ain't nothing getting done if Mitch McConnell keeps his seat.